Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dennis Habers. I work for the city of Rotterdam. And just to start, I'm quite curious who here knows where Rotterdam is. Can I see some hands? Nice, Netherlands, indeed. So, indeed, we're a city in the southwest of the Netherlands. We're a delta city. Oh, the slider doesn't work. We're connected to the sea. And for me, the beauty of a delta is that everything is connected. The river is connected. Oh, come on. It's not working. Right. Sorry for that. So the sea connects the river to the hinterland, and the river connects the hinterland back to the sea. And along the way, the river deposits fertile soil along its banks, and it's along these banks where people have been settling for a very, very long time, as well as in Rotterdam. People have been settling in Rotterdam for a long time. The first inhabitants made grateful use of the fertile soil, of the fresh water, and Rotterdam really started to grow as a place for agriculture and for wool trading. But living in the delta also has its downsides. Sorry. Keep on pointing that way. So living in the delta also has its downsides. We get our water from four sides. We get it from the rain, from the sea, from the groundwater, and from the river. And humans have a tendency to want to control their environment. We're building dams, we're building dikes, we're pumping fresh water out of the ground, and we're industrializing the coast for agriculture. The deltas are hit extra hard by climate change as well. Over the years, we have completely depleted our soil. The river is not depositing much sediment anymore, and the need to become resilient to climate change becomes ever so visible. This is how Rotterdam looked once. Nowadays, it looks more like this. This is just your everyday view of Rotterdam. So we have quite a history with dealing with water, but in the 21st century, the urge to actually do something about the water and to deal with the extra rainfall became really evident. So we built a water buffer. This is underneath the parking garage. When sewers overflow during heavy storms, water is stored here to prevent overflow in the streets. But this is just one solution for a much bigger problem. Because if we don't do anything, this will happen a lot more in the next couple of years. So we have our Rotterdam Weatherwise program. It's a program that is going to deal with flooding, rainfall, heating, groundwater, land subsidence, and drought. And it looks at our opportunities for implementation, and it has made an agenda for the next 8 years. We translated that in a couple of, in some ways that we can improve our city and how parks can help. We have made 5 systems: the Old City District's Vitality, System of Water and Greenery, Living and Working in Deep Polders, Future of the Areas Outside the Dikes, and Densification in Densely Populated Areas. Today I'll talk about densification in densely populated areas and the Old City District's Vitality, because parks can play a really important role in our challenges that are coming here. So we have an interesting map here. It's a map of temperature of the city on a very hot day. As you see in the city center, right over here, it is very, very hot. And on the outskirts of the city, it's a lot cooler. In the city, we have a lot less evapotranspiration of water. We have a lot less infiltration of water into the ground. And a lot more water is being deposited through the sewers. That leads to a lot more heat in the city. But we also see that on the places where it's not that hot, we have parks. These are all quite bigger parks, but we also see it on smaller strips. Like here, you see this really small strip. There's a park and it's less hot. See it here and here as well. And it doesn't have to be big, because the one that you see on the left, it's just a tiny part of the street that's green. So I just showed you the map of where we really are going to face issues with heat. And this is a map of where we are going to build a lot of houses in the near future. And what we see is that where we want to build the most houses, we also have the biggest challenges facing heat. We have these. So we're going to build around 5,000 houses on the left side of the screen, around 5,000 in the city center, around 1,500 to 5,000 just below the river. But we also see that there's places where it's quite cool at the moment, where we have a big challenge, where we can actually adapt before we have to face our challenges. So the first topic that I want to discuss is densification in densely populated areas. The problems that we have in densely populated areas is that hot squares and streets have a negative effect on our comfort levels. Those high-rise buildings, they really retain a lot of heat. In the city center, we have lots of concrete and very little greenery. We have a lot of external heat sources that really heat up our environment. We also have extreme precipitation. Which can cause mobility issue. We can have overfull sewers, which will lead to stench, which will lead to dead fish. It can generally lead to a lot of inconvenience, like we saw last week during Storm Karen. So what can we do to prevent more problems in densely populated areas? We need to start taking a look at different materials, like using different materials, using different colors, using different types of buildings, like the building you see on the left. It really uses the wind to create a cooling effect in the city. We need to use the subsoil more for cooling. We can use more wooden benches instead of steel benches. Another one is to create a green, cool water city and to use buildings more as a water buffer and a place to cool down. We can use buildings to provide shade. We can create green parks inside buildings. We can collect water underneath buildings like we did here. New buildings are perfect for storing more water and for creating indoor parks. What we see a lot is that buildings are removed for trees, but how often do we see it that, we see a lot that trees get removed to create a building, but how often do we see that a building is removed to create more trees? And it's important that we change this. I'm not saying we have to remove all buildings right now and create more trees, but we really need to start looking at our environment more as our place to live. Our place to live is not just the building that we live in, but it's the entire public environment. So an interesting case study that we've done is this urban water buffer. We need to save a lot of rainwater to use during droughts, but just putting a multi-million liter tank on the street with rainwater, it's not really an option. So where can you store the rainwater? Here in Rotterdam, we used the space beneath our feet to create a place to store our rainwater. Rotterdam has multiple layers of soil. We have sand, we have clay, we have peat. And these sandy layers, they can really act as aquifers. They allow for introduction and holding of water. So what we've done is that the stadium that you saw here, rain that falls on it, it is collected underneath the stadium in underneath a small sports field. It's introduced into a treating system where we purify the water. Then we introduce it into the aquifer, where we store it for a long time, and during a drought we can pump it back up and irrigate our football fields. This is a pilot we've done in 2018, and since then we've done many more pilots like this. So what you see is that the water buffer you saw on the right side is actually the small treating system in the picture. Another big problem that we have during in our city is that during dry periods it's very hard to get enough water, but during extreme rainfall it's very hard to get rid of all the water. And our old cities, the old city districts, it's very vulnerable to too much water. You see here on this map, it's a map of, in the case of an extreme rainstorm, where most water will be left on the streets. And as you can see, a lot of water will be left in the old city districts. These are districts that were built pre-war. They have very narrow streets. They often have very little greenery and extensive paving, which make it very difficult to process water. I've shown you this one before, but this is an actual case that happened a couple of years ago. A sewer burst. So it's not a rainstorm, but a sewer burst, but you can see how easily the streets get flooded. So the problems that we have in our old city districts is that we have a lot of high groundwater and also a lot of low groundwater. It's extremely fluctuating. Our gardens get wet due to subsidence. Low groundwater affects the wooden piles of our foundations. We have mixed ownership in the houses, so that it makes it really hard to solve the problems because you have a lot of different owners that don't always want to work together. So what can we do about this? We also have extreme precipitation, where you have a lot of water left in gardens. Sewers overflow into the streets. But so, yeah, what can we do about this? The first thing that we always should do is preservation through technical optimization. Think of drainage of excess groundwater. Think of replenishment of water shortages. But this is really tailor-made solutions, and sometimes it's not possible to apply tailor-made solutions in a city district that is that old. So one thing we can do is transformation through demolition and reconstruction. This is not always an option. You cannot always just say, like, we're going to demolish this entire building block and build a park. But it is sometimes an option, and it creates a big opportunity to create more urban parks. Like this, if you build your cities like this and create rooftop gardens, greener roofs, water buffers on top of your roof, rainwater can be processed on site. It creates a real opportunity to create more parks in your city. And the last one is to strengthen your green and blue structures. This is a basketball field in the summer or during a dry period. On the left hand, you see a gym here. This is how it looks in the winter or during a storm. So you see the gym you just saw, it's here now. And this is actually this. So it's a really nice urban water buffer. But we also really need to look at more parks in streets, more green in the street, like park streets like this, or park streets like this. This is in Antwerp, actually. It really creates opportunities for more green and more cooling in the city. This is Hofplein. It's one of our most busy squares in the city. And we want to make it more green. So this is how we want to make it look. It's quite a challenge because this is a really ambitious project, but we have a lot of challenges here. It's a big challenge to unite all the stakeholders. We have a tram, we have traffic, we have everything under the ground like cables, sewers, fresh water. So it's a big, big trouble. But as I've shown here, parks have a cooling function. You really see that where there's parks, it's cooler. But they don't only have a function for cooling, they also have a function for biodiversity. We measure biodiversity in a lot of places in our city. These are all the transects that we walk through every year. And what we see is that where there are parks, we also see a lot more species. And we don't only see that the density of the species that we see is higher in and around parks, we also see that biodiversity is higher in parks. You just see that there where we have green and where we have parks, there's a lot more life. So what does a species need to live somewhere and to settle somewhere? They need a place to nest, they need food, they need safety, and they need a place or a way to actually get there. So in Rotterdam, we wanted to create a larger network for biodiversity. And we started with one interesting group. We started with the bees. And we went outside and we looked at all of our green and scored its compatibility for bees. It might be hard to see, but all the yellow parts is where our green might be suitable for bees. All the red part is where it's not suitable for bees. And the green parts is where it's already quite suitable for bees. So what you can see is that we have quite some bigger areas that are very suitable for bees already. But we also have a lot of challenges, and we're actively working here to create more suitable area for the bees, making small adjustments like changing the mowing frequency to create an opportunity for more flowers to grow. And this way we're trying to create a more integrated and connected landscape in the city. We actually started in 2022 with this. This sign says, Rotterdam is working on a bee landscape here. Let's see, yeah. So during Corona, Paul said it as well, the need for parks became very evident. The urgency to create good, healthy, and publicly accessible space became very evident. And in Rotterdam, we really felt this as well. We have a few very large-scale parks, and we almost had to close them down because everyone went to those couple of parks. And we realized that a lot of people living in Rotterdam, they don't have a park within walking distance of their home. They don't have any green space that's just like accessible for them. So we started with the 7 city projects. It's an ambitious group of projects that is meant to provide the city with more green lungs and to provide public green and public parks for everyone to relax in, to meet each other in, to exercise in. So we actually, these are the 7 parks. 7 projects. And as you can see, they are quite strategically placed along the hotter parts of the city. So some actually interesting ones. You cannot see my thing, right? No. Some interesting ones. The one in the middle is called Hofplein. It's one of the poorest streets in the Netherlands in terms of noise pollution and air quality. It's super busy and very, very noisy. And if we can continue with what we've planned, we will allow temperature to drop between 4 and 6 degrees. And we're also building 2 urban water buffers in here. But as I said before, it's a very big challenge to unite everything here. Another interesting one is this one. This used to be a railroad track, It's not in use anymore, and we're creating a 2-kilometer long ribbon of green here. Another one that's very interesting is this one, because it's along the river, and our river is connected to the sea, so we have a lot of influence from the tides as well. Our water is brackish in Rotterdam, and this is one of the parks where the tides will have a direct influence on our nature. So then there's one left that I want to show a tiny bit more about. This is Rijnhaven Park. It used to be a port, but we will, it looks like this at the moment. But in the future, it's supposed to look like this. We're going to raise 1/3 of the Rijnhaven with sand, and we're going to create an 18 hectares big park. I think it's quite an improvement to go from there, from the picture on the left to the picture on the right. This is what it currently looks like when you stand where there used to be water. We're draining it now, and we're artificially pumping it up with sand. Part of the park will float as well. This is how it looks like for my office, actually. So you can see that it actually is starting to develop. A park is already growing before it's even completed. So I hope that it will look like this in the future, that we have more green space for everyone to enjoy. So my takeaways for you today, I have 2 takeaways. The first one is this. Grab every quick win that you can. If you have a chance to plant more green, if you have a chance to create a water buffer, if you have a chance to plant a tree, do it. Do it wherever you can. Oh, I think, can you put my slide back on? Right, thank you. But the other one is that you have to create a plan for the next couple of years. It's very important to have a plan, to know where you're going with your city. We need to create a structure of green and a structure of blue. We need to plan ahead, know where we're going to plant our parks, and to start looking at our public space as one place to live, as a whole. And I have one final quote for you. I don't know who it's from, but I thought it was quite appealing. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Thank you.